So thank you everyone for joining us. We are recording today's session, so if at any time you would like to view the recording, it will be available after today. I just want to first and foremost say welcome and thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Kylie Gudenkauf. I'm a program developer with the Kirkwood Corporate Training Team. Today we have Dan Tope joining us to present on business acumen superpowers. We have a lot to deal with these days, and business acumen for you and your team is a superpower for dealing with uncertainty, change, and disruption. Our presenter, Dan, is a successful performance improvement consultant who is passionate about helping people and businesses achieve dramatic performance and improvement through business learning. Dan designs, leads, and implements learning and development initiatives aligned with the strategic goals of his client organizations. His imaginative and professional presentations produce outstanding results as documented by attendees' performance. Dan can help your company develop strategic thinking, implement human performance technology, and design learning systems to achieve outstanding results. I just want to let you guys know that throughout today's presentation, please feel free to use that chat feature. Dan already sent you guys all a chat welcoming you and asking you to introduce yourself, so please go ahead and do that. If you're not familiar with Zoom, if you just wiggle your mouse, you'll see a toolbar pop up at either the top or the bottom, typically, and you can click on that chat and send a message to everybody, or you can type a question in that Q&A. We will be doing a live Q&A session with Dan after today's presentation, so please stay on for that. Dan, thank you so much for joining us, and whenever you would like to begin, that would be great.
Thank you, Kylie, and thank you again for everybody. Yes, please put your name and introduce yourselves into the chat so everyone else can see who's here as well. Let's create a little bit of community, shall we? I think we need that these days. I'm so delighted that I've been invited to participate in today's webinar, and I'm delighted to meet all of you today. And I am looking forward to the questions and answers at the end. And so as you are thinking about some of the things I'm presenting today, and in fact, if their superpowers do in fact stir something in you and you would like to chat more about that discovery for yourselves, I'm happy to help. A little bit about me that Kylie didn't share. I'm an Iowa kid. I've born and raised Northeast Iowa and in the Decorah Driftless region, grew up there in Winnebago County as a farm kid, and then went on to college at Loras and Dubuque and settled here in Ames, Iowa. My wife is a faculty member at Iowa State, and my family still lives here in the state. We're very proud of that heritage. And so that's just a little bit about me that I don't ordinarily share, but in this group, I make a point of it because you know, it's something that I celebrate and I'm very proud of. My focus in my work, I like to say that I am in the space between. I'm in the space between leadership development, which might include competencies like, you know, big picture thinking or driving for results or, you know, good communication skills and that type of thing. I'm in that space, but it's space between that and business result. Sales, margin, growth, performance, business objective, product launch, that kind of stuff. And I like to live in that space. I like to say, hey, let me help you put the connection between these important competencies of team decision making, let's say, and the result that it's having in the company. And that's where I like to live. I know that many of my trusted colleagues, and maybe even some of you on this call, you like to live in one side of this or the other, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I will tell you that I like to be in between. And when I find that sweet spot, I find that I can be most effective and I can have a great impact for my clients. Today's focus is on business acumen. That is an understanding of the business in general and your business in particular, so that you can make operationally effective and strategically sound decisions. That's what I mean by business acumen. It's a little bit of finance, it's a little bit of decision making, it's a little bit of understanding what's going on around us. And I think when we get that, when super smart people get what's going on in the business, you can't stop them. So I'm always inspired by some of our clients and program participants, because when they get that insight, You can't stop them. It's like, okay, I'm going to take new initiative now, and I have a new energy and a new enthusiasm and a new persistence to get good work done. So that's what inspired me to talk about today, the idea of superpower. And for many of us on this call, I think we have some of it. And as I reflect on superheroes and their emerging and their origin story, sometimes it's just like, wow, I didn't realize I had this, and now I need to do right and do good. And so I offer that opportunity for you as well today. But is it needed? Seems like the red phone is blinking to a point of complete and utter distraction. What is on our minds? Well, first it's COVID, maybe derecho. Who knew that that would be a word we could put into our common vernacular these days? But in addition to the usual things about economic anxiety and our ability to keep our jobs and keep our businesses growing, our organizational success, and a new challenge, this idea of work from home, and we have children here and their school is topsy-turvy. We have a lot of distress. And of course, we need to pivot our businesses. We need to work in new ways, and we just have to get on with it in some meaningful way. We have to find a place, a path to stabilize the chaos. We were in some whitewater, and we're maybe going back into some, and we just really put a lot of energy into like saying some kind of pivot. And this notion from the American military, VUCA. Our American military has a lot of acronyms, right? And our American military coined this one several years ago: volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. Today's modern warfighter has to adapt to this type of environment, and it's very much we can relate to it. So we need a hero. We need someone to help us. Well, it turns out that we have the ability to help ourselves. And I think a little bit of it is business acumen. It plays a small part in that big picture perspective. And that's what my thoughts today are centering around. When you think about the big things, while you're doing the small things, all these things seem to go in the right direction. And I found that that is a very good insight for us. While we're dealing with all of the crises, all of the things in our to-do list, all of the things in our Teams chat, all of the documents, all of the things that are on our plates, if we can keep the bigger picture in mind, it will help us prioritize, it will help us do good work, and it will help us meet the needs of our stakeholders, whether they're our bosses, our communities, our shareholders, our employees, our teams, etc. So if we think about it in this way, we need to switch in our mind not only the details of what we're doing, but also the why. And for some of us, we do spend a good bit of time in that leadership space of understanding your why and understanding why I have that and what that does to motivate me so I can bring others with me. So very consistent with good leadership principles as we relate to some of the challenges that we have in our world today. So let me tell you about my origin story. The origin story of this way of thinking comes out of an experience that I had in around 2009. Now, if some of you remember what was going on in 2009, we had a significant financial crisis. We also had, impact to the stock markets, impact to lots of organizations around Iowa that many still struggle to recover from. We had a housing crisis and so on. Well, in my world, I'm doing in-person seminars. So I had a seminar that day in 2009. It was March. It was at a financial services organization, a very large insurance company. And my colleague and I were coming into this seminar thinking, well, we're here today. We might be able to get the Danish, and they're going to tell us that we're canceled. Why? Because in the news that morning, their stock price had dropped in the last couple of weeks 90%. They had had a recent earnings call, didn't go well. They had a follow-up emergency call with shareholders a week or so later, and that did not help either. They were one of those organizations that was on the financial channel, like what are we going to do with them kinds of things when they talk about it on CNBC. So my colleague and I didn't think we were even going to have a program today. I mean, who would have a program? We're expecting 25 people. Well, since we've already spent the money, said the HR director, we're going to have a program. We'll see who arrives and we'll teach who comes. Okay. We're planning on 25. We had 35. 10 extra people came that weren't even part of our organization, part of our agenda, part of our attendance list. Okay, we rearranged. We had a day and a half focused on what? What was drawing them in? It was focused on leadership, and it was focused on what's going on in the business. We had content related to the accounting of the financial services organization. We had content related to strategy and making sense of it. We had content on how do you talk to people about the strategic priorities? How do you read the dashboards that will show the financial information and business information, and how do you interpret those data and draw the right conclusions from it? How do you do some planning to result in what's going on in the broader marketplace? What can we anticipate is coming, and how do we do that? And as well as how can we, particularly in the financial organization, how do we protect our promise that we have made to our policy owners, to our customers? How do we protect those promises and keep those promises going forward? So those were some of our topics. That's why the extra people came. The crisis drove them in to learn what is going on. So by the end of it, I had best engagement I'd ever had. By the end of it, I had some of the most meaningful action plans from our learners. Those of you in training know what I'm talking about. Wow, look at those things that they said they're going to do. Some of them even didn't even wait to the break. They got on the phone and took some of this content and put it to use straight away, stepping out and taking calls and things and telling us about it. We had one of the best programs I'd ever had. As I reflected on that, and as I reflect on the environment we're in today, I think what made that really work was because my colleague was a wonderful instructor and I'm just along for the ride. No, what really made it work, I think, was the context, is that people were seeking understanding so that they could deal with this chaotic change that they were experiencing. They sought out the bigger picture. And as I reflect on that, when that context is right, boy, do I love my job. I have so much fun when that context is right. So since then, I've spent a good deal of time with my clients in every engagement that I have, making sure we get the content right, but also get the context right. We need to know who's coming and why and what's on their plate and what can I do to help them. If I understand that, then I can make sure that the content is right. So that's my origin story around this superpower. And perhaps you can relate to it. Perhaps you were working in that space at the time, but it was an opportunity for me, a seminal opportunity for me. So let's talk a little bit about what we might be able to relate to. Do you relate to this feeling of futility sometimes? It's like so many things are going on, and that indeed you might not even be able to see your way through it. Is it worth it? You know, maybe even people around you in your organization, people on your team, people that you interact with are challenged by. Can we see where this is going? Can we see the other side, even though perhaps it's going to be a wonderful thing on the up, but it's hard to see. And then you start to question whether or not it's even worth it. Perhaps you can identify with a certain feeling of futility. Can you relate to another feeling? A certain feeling of powerlessness, maybe in yourself, maybe in others, where you feel as though, hey, you know, it doesn't seem to be affecting me. You know, there are many companies, organizations across our state and across our region that are doing really, really well. They haven't had such growth, such opportunity. So, and they're like, how do we harvest this? And so like, why do we need to change our organization? Why do we need to change anything? It doesn't seem as though today's environment is affecting us in any way other than we need to get going. And in others, we are staring into the abyss and we don't seem to have widespread understanding of what it's really going to take to turn this company into something that can survive it. So all of us are in slightly different places, but sometimes very radically different places. And people often can have a sense of powerlessness if they're not sure and they don't see the bigger picture. So I'm thinking that perhaps you can relate to a couple of these scenarios around your company's people, your own organizations. So part of the solution for dealing with today's environment, I believe, is that we need to see the bigger picture. And there's no better way to do that than to go up with Superman, get up, up and away, and change that perspective so that you can see how all of the larger elements can fit together. So I want you to reflect on that as a result of today's webinar, thinking about where you can go up with him, and he can help you see how things fit together, where things are, and the why behind all of these challenges that we're faced with. If you do this well, and if you take the time to do it, it becomes the superpower. And this is where I'm coming from. That means employees, everyone, can see a candid reality of what top leadership sees. Often that kind of perspective is only limited to those at the top of the organization. So when you have other people, when you have lots of people all seeing the real reality of what's going on, they want to help. So they can put things in proper perspective, and then they get a chance to reset their goals. They will be less inclined to do things that only benefit themselves personally. They'll be more inclined to do things for the greater good, for the greater good of the organization, because that transparency builds trust and it builds engagement. Oh, okay, we are in this together. And when you see this common foe, this common challenge, we see that candid reality of what we're up against, then we can really put things to work and really great things can happen. And I've seen it. Let's try it. Let's put on our X-ray vision. Let's put on our superpower glasses that we can use to see the bigger picture. And frankly, we have this innate ability to do this. Think about it. Look at this photo. Do you see the cow in this picture? Some of you are wondering, why? Is it hidden somewhere? Is it in one of those black dots someplace? Is it around? Others of you are like, yeah, I saw it right away, Dan. Let's move on. I get it. Others are like, how long is this going to last? Because I'm starting to get a bit frustrated. And what difference does it make? I'm never any good at these things. Can you see the cow? Do you need to back up a little bit? Did you change your perspective? Did you turn your head maybe? Of course you see the cow now. There it is. And now if we go back, you can't not see it, huh? That's pretty powerful, isn't it? That superpower of once I get it, I can't not see it. Once I see that there's a cow there, once I see the arrow in the FedEx logo, it's always there. Once I always see it, and that can become a bit dangerous. So we have to use that with some responsibility, don't we? Because we can draw conclusions pretty quickly and sometimes they're wrong. And we have to unsee certain things. We certainly have experienced that in many of our organizations nowadays. So that's a superpower, isn't it? To be able to see something with very limited information. But once we do see it, it's quite powerful. How about another superpower? Making decisions to impact your organizations. Now, I'm sure many on this call are coming from different types of organizational structures, perhaps cooperatives, for-profit enterprises, municipal organizations, maybe even nonprofits, healthcare, maybe even publicly traded companies, family-owned businesses, startups. So when I say the business here, I'm talking about the organization. And there are 5 business factors that we can connect to draw a set of conclusions to make things better and to take things up and away. First, cash flow. The idea is more cash has to be coming in than going out. Okay. We need to know where our cash came from. Did it come from customers? Did it come from bankers? Did it come from owners? Can we sustain it? How long does it take? When does it come in? Can we make payroll? Can we buy that thing or do we have to borrow for it? Cash decisions, understanding how that works and how all of us can help. Margin. You know, I had a client tell me, business isn't a game of numbers. It's a game of margin. So certainly we can sell more units, more time, more beds, more services, more aircraft parts. But unless we're making money on these things, we may as well not ship them. There has to be a margin. So let's pay attention to what we can do with good pricing, with good innovative pricing, good innovative solution that customers are willing to pay for, solution sets, digitalization and value. But also, you know, we're going to put costs where they're going to do the most good. We're not going to do costs that don't generate any return for us. So that's two sides of margin, cost and the sale. Asset speed. Now I want you to think about what the assets I'm talking about too. Asset speed means how quickly can we harvest the value from the asset? It's one thing to have a nice building, but how quickly do we fill it with orders? It's one thing to have a nice store in the downtown area, but do we get the traffic flow that we're looking for? We're going to open up a Cooter's Coffee on the corner. How quickly can we fill up that drive-through lane? So when you think of a scooters, you have scooters, we have scooters by us too. Just they're popping up all over the place. People love their coffee. How quickly can you get that building open? And also, when you're learning new skills, when you're developing your people and your key talent, can we move those assets and speed our attempt to bring value to customers so that we can generate cash and margin from it? So it isn't about how much we have in terms of inventory or product facilities or buildings or delivery trucks. It's about how well we use them, how quickly we bring them to commercial value. And then we need to grow. That's a superpower as well. Thinking about, well, growing ourselves, growing our business, growing our team. Not just growing in count, but growing in capability, in confidence and competence. Right people in the right place. Having new capabilities. We never knew so much power could be in our, let's say, a Teams environment in Microsoft Teams until we've started to use it and more, and we're really starting to grow our capability and leveraging that as an example. And of course, all of this relates to people. The right people, talented people, growing the people you have, finding key talent for the people that would love to have join your organization, getting the right people with the right skills in the right places. These are superpowers when you can connect all of these 5 factors to draw the right conclusions, to help your business grow. That's a superpower in my book. Over the last several months, I think we've been able to identify yet another superpower. Maybe it was a bit dormant, but over the last several months, many of us have really exercised these empathy skills, this emotional intelligence, this ability for us to see from another person's perspective, to do the hard work, to understand what might be a challenge for them or might be an advantage for another, so that we can make a more equitable, more inclusive environment. But I want you to think about it in another way. Here's a metaphorical picture that I just love. Let's say you're thinking about this or this change of COVID times, and our leaders are in the locomotive, the engine. They're coming out the other side. They're beginning to see what it might be like in a post-COVID world. And so they're starting to see it. Look how happy he is. Okay, I've made it through. But then look to the left of this tunnel. Some people are still being creamed by it. If you've gone to the clinic, you see our frontline healthcare workers, they're still being creamed by this thing. There's just still so much uncertainty at so many different levels. Your own organization, what are our safety protocols? We're trying to watch the game. The Hawkeyes are going to play their first game this weekend. How do you gather safely to do that, but still have it be a good gathering with our friends to watch the game? We're still being creamed by this thing. And then we've got someone at the very end blissfully unaware because they live in a community that is yet to be affected. Their family hasn't been affected, perhaps. But you can also think about an empathy related to some of the things that we've had to do in our business, where we've had to change the organization in one way or another, where we had to shift from this environment to another environment. Maybe we've put a new employee management system in, a new inventory control set of tools. Maybe we've digitalized some things, and certain people are blissfully unaware about the change. We've done this process improvement. The team has already implemented it, but it hasn't come to my state. It hasn't come to my office. It hasn't come to me yet. And I just find that is so funny. And look at that. He's not even looking in the correct direction, that little guy in the caboose. Dude, you got to turn your head. You got to turn your head pretty soon. But we can empathize. We can find ourselves from our seat to be able to see, okay, these people are at a completely different place, and we need to understand that. That's a superpower. And when we see that, we can unleash what we know about organizational change, what we know about how people respond to it, how they get with the program, so to speak. And when they do, when we apply what we know that communicating the bigger picture works. We know that addressing the human side, the emotional side, people go through a rather predictable stages of grief, don't they, when we deal with these kinds of changes? And yet when it's theirs, when they own it, a broad sense of ownership and engagement, the evidence is clear. And we can provide the right internal conditions, get rid of barriers, get rid of things that get in their way, provide them the tools to work from home, to deal with their kids, to provide this emotional support, to give them the right incentive, the right feedback, the right nudges, the right encouragement. We can get them to do what's needed. And part of it is just understanding that bigger picture. It's not always the answer to provide more education and training, but it is a way to frame these questions. So you might have a question, like what is possible? What do we need to do? But it is learning that provides us those answers. And this final superhero picture I picked intentionally. This is one of our shows that I'm binge watching right now. It's called The Umbrella Academy. And each of these young people has a certain superpower, and the entire story revolves around their exploration of that. They didn't know they had it. And some of them thought they had it. A few of them thought they had something else. And one of them in particular didn't think she had any, when in fact they all have a unique set of superpowers to help save the day. So consider that your challenge to go through your own origin story. When you do, I think you can apply business acumen and use these superpowers in these ways to engage everyone in the bigger picture of the organization, to allow them to learn, to allow everyone to learn the why behind what's going on so they can draw the right conclusions about the how, whether it's something they needed to come up with on their own or something they need to follow through on because your organization is requiring it or the circumstances require it. Engaging people through your own empathy and understanding how they're doing and meeting people where they are. Because guess what? People really appreciate being in the know. And when they're in the know, they understand what's going on and why, and we are in it together. You get that sense. And so when you trust your people to do this, they have great power. And with that great power comes with it the great responsibility of following through and getting on with the change, getting on with the improvement of our business, and getting on with our ability to deal with all of the uncertainty and all of the challenges around it. We have it. We have it, and business acumen is part of the solution. It's been my pleasure talking with you about some of the things that I'm passionate about, business acumen and the bigger picture. I didn't talk too much about some of the specifics, but if you have questions about some specifics that I've done with some of my clients, I'm happy to answer those. But indeed, this idea of seeing the bigger picture is quite a powerful connection, quite a powerful tool set for your leaders and for your organizations. And by that, I'll turn it back to Kylie.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. And I want to thank all of our viewers, whether you're on Zoom or Facebook Live, for joining us today. If you guys would like to bring Dan in-house on this topic or any other topic, please feel free to contact us at Kirkwood Corporate Training at corporatetraining@kirkwood.edu, or you can give us a call at 319-398-5623. We will be starting our Q&A session with those on Zoom here shortly. So if you have a question, maybe you have a specific scenario or some information that you would like to ask Dan, this would be a great time to go ahead and type that in that chat box. For our Facebook Live viewers, thank you so much for joining us. We will be ending the Facebook Live now. There will be a recording of today's session available early next week. Great. Well, thank you again, Dan. It was great having you join us. I had to admit during your session with the cow picture that when you first were showing me that slide in particular, that I completely did not see the cow. And I'm usually good at catching those things, but that one was tricky.
It's such a wonderful metaphor because indeed, sometimes people come to you and talk to you as if you already understand something. And it is, yeah, so then you go through a series of emotions like, I'm not seeing it. What's wrong with me? I'm not sure. What is wrong with those people? I don't think this is right. What? There's a whole, then once you do go, oh, that's what it is. I love that aha.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did get a question. Dan, how do you recommend leaders start the discussion with their teams to take that first step toward broadening their willingness to see things differently?
Oh, great question. I think you can engage people in, well, one of the ways that I do a lot is through what you might call simulation. Okay. Now these things can be, it's like a learning tool or a program, for example, but it's a way to engage learners in a game that teaches the point. So I might ask them to, hey, here are 4 employees, you have to rank them. And so then they get information that might be inappropriate in those 4 profiles, and they rank them. And then I tell them, guess what? You're going to be sued. Why? Well, you asked me to rank their quality, and I did. Yeah, but the information you used was inappropriate. So we need to make a change. Wait a minute. Yeah, I guess it is, isn't it? So I ask them to do it again with better information. A 30-minute exercise, engage them and say, you know, our performance management systems need to be a little bit more systematic. Broaden that idea out to, wow, what would you do? These are scenarios of customer service that we had at our ReadyMix plant. What would you do? And I realized, wow, I can recognize all of these things. And I guess now that if it's shoes on the other foot and I have to make these decisions, I can see why leadership is challenged by them. So those are different ways that I've used to engage the discussion, engage leaders, but also engage leaders with all of the employees as well. So those are a couple of techniques that I've used.
Very good. Thank you for that. You guys, if you have any other questions, please feel free to type that in that chat box. Or if you have a question that maybe provides or needs some context, don't be afraid to let me know that you're typing a question so that way I don't end this early without getting your question asked.
Sure.
You know, Dan, I was taking some notes while you presented, and one of the things that really resonated with me was I loved that quote you started a session off with today about thinking about the big things while doing the small things, and about how all the things kind of come together to go in the right direction. I know that really helps frame that up for me. Not only in a positive light, because sometimes these conversations can be difficult, or it's hard for some folks to zoom in and zoom out like that. But I just love seeing that, yes, it does matter. And it's easy to get the big picture right with the small things we all do.
Right. Let me just give you a quick little story about that. I mean, recently I did some work with a community bank. And the community bank, very focused on retail customer service. So you and me, coming in and using banking services, whether that's savings and checking and mortgage loans and maybe a car loan and credit cards and that type of thing. And they're very focused on that, what's now referred to as the customer experience. But what was missing in their training, in their identity, and in their sense of urgency around that was why they need to keep my deposits on the balance sheet. So if I'm unhappy as a retail customer and I switch banks, all of my deposits and all of my checking account and all of my little savings things might go with me. Well, what does that mean? That means they don't have those dollars to lend out to the community. And that impacts the performance of the bank. So by keeping the bigger picture in mind, yes, we want to provide excellent customer experience so that the bank can retain its deposits, so that it can use those deposits and leverage those deposits in loans. That's a connector that we work with our clients on. Oh, so that's why it's so triply important to be good at customer service and have a great experience on the app to make it easy for somebody to add a product or take a product away or whatever our processes are for our business. And that's what I mean when I'm talking about I'm in that space. Leadership competency, let's say service orientation, and what it really means to the balance sheet.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. I love that analogy and how easy it is then to kind of think about it, I think, in that context. So thank you for that. Dan, do you have any other parting thoughts for us? We have a very quiet group today, which is okay. Or any other things you'd like to share before we wrap up today's session?
Well, if you like this and want more, be sure to talk with Kylie. I love working for all of the organizations across the state of Iowa. And you can hit me up as well through Kylie to see me on the Twitter and also on the LinkedIn, as well as other social media. I do not fill my Twitter feed with things like, Cardi B or memes and things like that. So it's pretty safe to follow me. But I do have a passion for this type of thing. And I've got really great people who influence my thinking on all of this, and I'm happy to share. So thanks, Kylie, for inviting me in, and I'm so glad that all of you are here too as well. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much for your time today, Dan. And thank you to all of you who have logged in today and stayed with us and participated in today's presentation. Again, if you'd like to have Dan come in-house on this topic or any other topic, feel free to reach out to us at Kirkwood Corporate Training. Our number is 319-398-5623. Thank you, everybody, and everybody have a fantastic day today.